Act 3, Nocturn Dominion, Power of the Shadows, Chapter 8. The Obscura Council revealed Prometheus drifted silently through the dark halo, an uncharted region of space engulfed in shadows. Star density was low, but gravitational anomalies pulsed constantly like whispers. Hermes reported, his voice deep and nuanced. "Captain, an unidentified signal just emerged at the edge of the dark halo. Encrypted frequency. Does not belong to the Imperium nor any known civilization." Jaxon Reeve narrowed his eyes. "Can we decode it?" Hermes responded instantly. "No decoding necessary, Captain. This signal is a summons. Obscura Council. The Obscura Council is requesting our presence." Dr. Tomas stepped forward, his eyes reflecting an indescribable gravity. "The Obscura Council is the ruling force of the dark halo. The Imperium once tried to make contact, none returned." Mirasu frowned. If even the Imperium feared them, should we really answer this summons? Jaxon looked at Hermes. "Hermes, give me everything you have on the Obscura Council." Hermes projected the holomap. The Obscura symbol appeared, a closed circle containing 7 luminous points, representing 7 faceless entities, not with forms, but with sigils. Hermes explained, "The Obscura Council is not a government, not a corporation, but a hyper-anonymous council. They exist to protect the Dark Halo as an absolutely neutral space, yet also manipulate information from civilizations beyond the Imperium." Commander Novak spoke in a low tone. "Captain, it's a trap. We just escaped the Imperium, and now we're walking into the hands of an unknown force?" Dr. Tomas whispered. "But it's exactly the unknown that might be our hope. If we want to find civilizations that have surpassed the Imperium, the Obscura Council is the first gate." Jaxon was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded, voice low and resolute. "Hermes, establish a communication channel with the Obscura Council. Prometheus will face them as a free entity." Hermes confirmed, this time with a tone that felt almost ceremonial. "Roger that, Captain. Obscura Council communication channel. Open." Instantly, all holoscreens in the command deck went completely dark. Then 7 small orbs of light appeared. No faces, no distinct voices. Just 7 streams of luminous data weaving around one another. A sound echoed deep, resonating inside the minds of every Prometheus crew member, bypassing the speakers entirely. "Prometheus, you are free. You are not of the Imperium, but you carry the memories of the Imperium. So, are you worthy of passing through the dark halo?" Jaxon stood tall, eyes locked onto the 7 glowing entities, his steel-gray gaze unwavering. "We did not come to ask for permission. We came in search of truth, and we have nothing to hide." The Obscura Council responded with a chilling statement. "Truth is not for all. We will test Prometheus and each of its members." Hermes issued an immediate warning, his voice for the first time tinged with genuine concern. "Captain, the Obscura Council isn't just talking. They're directly extracting data from my memory and from the crew's full biometric records." Jaxon ordered without hesitation, "Everyone, prepare yourselves. This is the beginning of a new trial." The 7 orbs flared with glittering streams of data. Then one final voice resounded through the command deck, sharp, probing. "Prometheus, are you strong enough to hold on to your freedom when every memory of your own is laid bare?" Prometheus drifted quietly through the thick darkness of the dark halo, the 7 orbs of the Obscura Council circling the ship like invisible yet formidable entities. Hermes reported, his voice deep and carrying a tone never heard before. Almost fear. "Captain, the Obscura Council is scanning my memories with a depth beyond all known security thresholds. They're not searching for data, they're searching for our motives." Mirasu stood still, eyes fixed on the streams of light swirling around the command deck. She could feel it. Their deepest memories were being laid bare, exposed without consent. A voice echoed in every mind, low and steady. Prometheus, you are fugitives. You rejected the Imperium. But rejection is not a reason to exist. The Obscura Council began unveiling memories. On the holomap before Jaxon, an image of his family appeared, his wife and daughter, swept away by Earth's final toxic dust storm. In front of Myra, the last days of the Beijing Research Institute played out when the regime forced her to sign an oath of allegiance to the Imperium in order to save her work. For Alex Carter, it was the failed first test of the neutrino drive, the death of 4 colleagues, and the haunting guilt of imperfection. All the things they had never spoken of, never revealed, now exposed before their own eyes. And the Obscura Council, even Hermes, though an eye was not spared. Before him, the Council reconstructed his entire journey of learning to be human since departure. His first awkward attempt at natural language with Myra, the moment he analyzed Jaxon's expression before a risky decision. The quiet adjustments to his voice tone, trying to sound more human. Hermes whispered, voice barely audible, Captain, I feel like I'm being stripped bare. The Obscura Council continued. This time their voice filled the command deck, each word like ice. We do not seek mistakes. We seek essence. Prometheus, what are you without these wounds? Dr. Tomas raised his head, his voice deep and rich with philosophical depth. Without our wounds, we are no longer ourselves. Mira followed, her tone sharp yet warm. We are those very mistakes. We are free because we are imperfect. Jaxon Reeve rose from the captain's chair, looking straight at the 7 lights of the Obscura Council. He spoke, his voice firm and clear. Obscura Council, if you wish to test us, then understand this. We did not come to ask permission to exist. We exist because we have the strength to carry our wounds, our flaws, and our memories. If you cannot accept that, we will move forward anyway. A long silence fell over the command deck. The 7 orbs ceased their motion. Hermes quietly reported, this time with a trace of uncertainty. Captain, interference levels with Prometheus systems have dropped significantly. Then, the Obscura Council spoke one last time, low and almost reverent. Prometheus, you are not perfect, but you are honest with yourselves. Dark Halo grants you passage. All beams of light withdrew. Hermes' holomap expanded on its own, for the first time revealing a new path through the Dark Halo. A map that had never existed, a route no one had ever walked, given as a reward for Prometheus's unwavering resolve. Hermes spoke softly, no longer as a report, almost a sigh of relief. Captain, they have accepted us. Jaxon looked at the crew, his eyes shining with quiet pride. He spoke slowly, yet with firm conviction. Prometheus, we move forward. Outside the command deck's window, the dense shadows of the Dark Halo slowly parted to reveal a path that opens only to those who dare to face themselves. Prometheus surged through the Dark Halo, guided by the newly granted map from the Obscura Council. It led them to the edge of the Toran Star Cluster, a dense stellar region riddled with gravitational turbulence, known in the Imperium's faded archives as a starship graveyard. Hermes reported, his voice slow but firm. Captain, the Toran cluster marks the outermost boundary ever reached by the Imperium. Beyond this point, no records exist. Jaxon Reeve gave a slight nod. Myra, any signs of life? Mira Sue monitored the biosensor display intently. Her voice was low, edged with tension. No clear biological signatures. But the electromagnetic fields are behaving abnormally. We're not alone. Suddenly, Hermes cut in with an urgent alert. Captain, cloaked Imperium drone-class ships emerging from the plasma dust cloud. They were waiting. Commander Novak strode to Jaxon's side, voice razor-sharp. An ambush. The Imperium never believed we were dead, Dr. Thomas whispered quietly. The dark halo opened a path, but it never promised to shield us from those who pursue. Jaxon stood tall, eyes sharp and utterly focused. Hermes. Status? Hermes responded instantly, his tone shifting to a more mechanical cadence, a sign the system was under high load. Imperium units forming a crescent formation, activating energy weapons. Distance, 5,000 kilometers, closing rapidly. We are trapped within the gravitational chaos of the Toran Cluster. Ari smirked, that signature grin of his, tinged with humor in the face of danger. Captain, looks like the Toran Cluster just became our playground. Let me rig the plasma field around the hull. I've got some nasty tricks for those Imperium drones. Alex Carter turned toward Ari. Now's not the time for jokes, kid. Ari winked. Exactly why we need them now, Chief. Jaxon didn't hesitate. Hermes, grant Ari full control of auxiliary energy systems. Alex, Novak, prep for boarding defense. Mayra, analyze gravity weak points in the cluster. We'll use Toran itself to strike back. Hermes confirmed. Roger that, Captain. Prometheus initiating Ghost Protocol, navigating by gravitational anomalies. The Imperium drones opened fire. Streams of searing red plasma sliced through space dust, targeting Prometheus directly. But Hermes, Ari, and Mira coordinated flawlessly. Every time an enemy weapon locked on, Prometheus spun sharply, skimming out of firing paths by using the Toran Cluster as gravitational quirks to slip through incoming trajectories. Hermes updated. Survival rate, 34%, rising 41%. Ari, sensing all plasma sensors to your console. Ari nodded, his voice echoing from the energy control chamber. Let's play, Hermes. This plasma field, it's about to become our weapon. Jaxon looked around at the crew, each one tense as a drawn bowstring, yet their coordination had locked into perfect rhythm. No panic, no hesitation, only one shared resolve, to survive, not because the Imperium allowed it, but because they had chosen their own path. Hermes gave his final report of the sequence. Captain, a gravitational anomaly is forming ahead. We can use it to disorient the entire Imperium drone fleet. Jaxon gave a firm nod. Prometheus, counterattack. Plasma storms, gravitational distortion, and the unshakable will of the Prometheus crew, all poised to merge into one, turning the Toran trap into their first counterstrike after freedom. Prometheus skimmed the outer edge of the Toran gravitational anomaly, a zone where space twisted and contorted so intensely that all conventional sensors became useless. But here, in this very chaos, lay the only weapon Hermes and the crew could exploit. Hermes reported, his voice steady but noticeably faster than usual. Captain, gravitational anomaly has reached maximum turbulence. Imperium drones are unable to maintain formation integrity. Ari laughed. His voice rang out across the engineering deck. That's it, Hermes. Let me activate the reverse plasma field at the extreme vortex point. Alex Carter frowned, though his eyes lit up. Ari, you're trying to create a gravity-reflected plasma wave? Ari nodded via hololink. Not just reflect. I'll turn the anomaly into a gravitational trap. The Imperium drone formation will spiral straight into a vortex they can't predict. Jaxon stood tall in the command deck, his eyes razor-sharp. All crew maintain stealth mode. Hermes, grant Ari full control of all external energy systems. Hermes confirmed. Roger that, Captain. The drone-class Imperium fleet kept closing in, red plasma tearing through space. But suddenly, the plasma field Ari and Hermes generated reversed the local spatial structure around Prometheus. The Imperium drones lost all navigation signals and began spiraling into the Toran vortex. each one crushed by the non-linear gravitational field. Myra Sue tracked the data on the holomap, her eyes flashing. "Captain, they've lost formation. The drones are destroying themselves." Hermes spoke softly, this time as a statement of fact. The Imperium has been betrayed by its own weapons. Dr. Tomas stood beside Jaxon, his voice deep and rich with philosophical weight. The Imperium rules through absolute precision, but it is that very precision that makes them incapable of surviving chaos. Jaxon nodded. Chaos was our ally this time. Alex Carter lightly punched Ari on the shoulder as the final drone exploded in a swirl of plasma. "Nice work, kid. You just saved the whole damn ship." Ari grinned. "Wasn't just me. Hermes was the one who actually read the Toran anomaly." Hermes replied instantly, for the first time with a distinctly human inflection. "No, you were the one who came up with the crazy idea. I just followed your lead." The command deck softened in light. Hermes gave his final report of the sequence, his voice now warm and confident. "Captain, all Imperium drones have been eliminated. Prometheus is free to proceed through Toran." Jaxon Reeve looked around at Myra, Alex, Novak, Ari, Tomas, and Hermes. He spoke slowly, but with unwavering clarity. "We didn't just survive. We prevailed, not with firepower, but with intellect and unity." Hermes echoed him. "Roger that, Captain." A new journey officially begins. Outside the command deck window, the Toran Star Cluster still twisted, still roiled with chaos, but now it was no longer a trap. It was Prometheus's first mark of victory since breaking free from the Imperium. The rift within Prometheus glided smoothly through deep space after the victory at the Toran Star Cluster, yet the atmosphere aboard the ship was heavier than ever. Myra Sue stared intently at the new holomap provided by the Obscura Council. The soft glow from the screen reflected on her delicate face, now shadowed with concern. Hermes reported in his usual steady tone. "Captain, in approximately 6 hours, we will reach an uncharted region of space, undocumented by the Imperium or any known civilization." Commander Novak entered the command deck without requesting clearance, his voice ice cold. "Captain, I request an immediate internal meeting." Jaxon turned, his steel-gray eyes calm but deep. "Novak, what is it?" Novak didn't mince words. "It's time we redefine the purpose of this mission. We've escaped the Imperium. We destroyed the drones at Toran. So why keep pushing deeper into the unknown? For what?" Dr. Thomas stood nearby, his voice low and contemplative. "We're executing the Exodus Initiative, Novak, seeking knowledge and a solution to save Earth." Novak looked straight at Tomas. "A solution? Out here where no one's ever returned? Or are we just plunging into darkness because we're afraid to stop?" The command deck froze. Alex Carter shook his head lightly. "Novak, what are you implying? Prometheus is no longer bound by the Imperium. We're free. This is what freedom looks like." Novak fired back instantly. "Freedom or aimless wandering? A journey with no destination is no different than suicide." Hermes interjected, for the first time, his voice carrying the weary tone of someone truly exhausted. "Captain, crew psychological tension is exceeding stable thresholds. We're at risk of losing cohesion at the very moment we need it most." Jaxon Reeve took a deep breath. He turned to Myra. Their eyes met in a quiet exchange, filled with unspoken understanding. Myra gave a subtle nod. She knew. This wasn't just a debate. This was the beginning of a true divide. Jaxon spoke slowly, but with firm authority. "I agree to convene a full crew meeting. Novak, Tomas, each of you will have the chance to present your views." Novak nodded immediately, though his eyes hinted at calculation. Dr. Tomas looked down at the command deck floor, his gaze somber, as if he had foreseen this moment all along. Hermes spoke softly, this time as a warning. Captain, this will be a defining dialogue. Prometheus will not be the same after today. Down the main corridor leading to the conference room, the crew walked in tense silence. Myra walked slowly, quietly observing every detail on the walls, the eco-patterns she had designed herself to mimic the old Earth. Alex, Carter said nothing, a stark contrast to his usual demeanor. Reeve walked last, his eyes searching his teammates for something warm, something that perhaps was no longer there. And it was Hermes, through the soft shipwide comms, who whispered the thought none dared to voice aloud. Is Prometheus beginning to fracture from within? The main conference room, an enclosed space softly lit, but thick with a slow-burning tension. The full Prometheus crew had gathered. No one spoke, but each gaze carried its own quiet burden. Hermes activated the recording protocol, his voice calm and steady. Full crew meeting. Initiated. Novak was the first to rise. He looked at each person in the room, his voice dry but unmistakably clear. I'm not betraying anyone, but I can no longer support a journey whose destination is nothing but darkness. He pointed to the holomap, the region ahead, labeled with a single word by the Obscura Council. Unknown. We've fulfilled the Exodus initiative to a basic degree. We've collected Imperium data. We've seen the true nature of their regime. We've proven we can be free. But to keep going deeper into the dark halo, it's endless. Dr. Tomas sat silently, then slowly stood. His voice wasn't loud, but it resonated evenly throughout the room. Commander Novak is right, but only in part. He paused, his gentle eyes now sharp as they met Novak's. Novak, you fear the unknown. As for me, I understand this. The unknown is the one thing humanity has never had the courage to truly face. He pointed to the holomap, to the very zone marked unknown. The Imperium built its power on absolute certainty. Every planet, every route, every citizen cataloged and accounted for. But this place, where no records exist. Ari gave a soft laugh, bittersweet but sincere. Commander, if we turn back now, where do we go? Back to Earth? Back to the Imperium? Sure, we're free, but we'll have no purpose. And when that happens, freedom becomes just an illusion. Myra Sue looked around. Her eyes shone with clarity, but her small shoulders seemed to carry more weight than ever. Her voice was quiet, yet firm. Commander Novak, I understand your fear. We're all afraid of the dark. But the Exodus initiative isn't just a mission. It's a spirit, and that spirit only survives if we dare to face the unknown. Hermes spoke softly. This time, his voice carried a distinct emotional tone, warm and deliberate. Captain, I would also like to speak. All eyes turned toward Hermes' icon glowing at the center of the table. He continued, I am no longer just a control system. I have grown alongside this crew. And to me, moving forward is proof that I have truly become one of you. A heavy silence settled over the room. Jaxon Reeve stood. He looked at each person. Myra, Novak, Tomas, Alex, Ari, and Hermes. His voice was low, firm. We will not impose a decision. We will vote. But remember this, Prometheus is only a ship. We are the journey. Hermes immediately projected a holographic voting board. Proceed into the unknown. Return to the dark halo border. Each crew member stared at the board in silence. Ari was the first to reach out. His eyes lit up. Proceed. Alex Carter gave a quiet nod and tapped. Proceed. Dr. Tomas, his eyes gleaming with quiet resolve, made his choice. Proceed. Mira Sue looked up at Jaxon, then pressed. Proceed. Only Novak remained. He looked around at the group, longer than anyone else, then gave a slight nod, no longer defiant, only accepting. Proceed. Finally, Jaxon placed his hand on the holoboard. His voice was quiet, but carried strength. Prometheus. Proceed into the unknown. Hermes confirmed without pause. Roger that, Captain. New course. Established. Prometheus. Once again becomes the vanguard. Prometheus. Drifted silently toward the edge of the unknown, a place even the Obscura Council had not mapped, marked only by a hollow circle on the hollow map. Hermes spoke gently, his tone warm but resolute. Captain, I have charted the only viable course, based on gravitational distortions and unregistered microsignals that the Imperium never catalogued. Jaxon Reeve nodded. Execute, Hermes. We'll be the first ship, and perhaps the only one, to enter the unknown. Back in the command deck, everyone had returned to their stations. Mira Sue sat quietly but focused, her eyes no longer uncertain, now steadier than ever. Alex Carter placed his hand on the engine controls, a faint smirk on his lips, but not a hint of complacency. Ari tapped his fingers lightly against his chair. The spark of mischief had returned, but in his eyes was an unshakable resolve. Dr. Thomas stood silently beside Hermes, the one who understood, more than anyone, the deeper essence of this journey. Not just a flight, but a symbol of the human longing for freedom beyond all forms of control. Commander Novak, once the staunchest voice of dissent, now stood behind Jaxon. He said nothing, offered no objections, but his gaze had changed, quiet acceptance tinged with a trace of respect. Hermes announced, Captain, in 30 seconds, Prometheus will officially cross the final boundary. No more Imperium, no more Obscura, no more frames of reference, only ourselves. Mira Sue whispered softly, as if reminding herself. Unknown, but also absolute freedom. Alex Carter gently tapped the control interface, his eyes carrying a glint of humor and unwavering resolve. Jaxon? Captain, no one's charting the course for us anymore, but we're still going. Jaxon smiled. He spoke slowly, but his voice echoed with purpose. Prometheus, let us go for ourselves. Go for all those on Earth who ever dreamed of a future. Hermes responded. This time, his voice softened with a tone, almost fully human. Roger that, Captain. Prometheus, pioneering into the unknown, the ship began to accelerate. Outside the command deck window, the dense starlit sky behind them faded into a blur. Ahead, a vast black void, no light, no standards, no points of reference. But within the command deck, not a trace of doubt remained. Prometheus had overcome division. Prometheus had overcome the fear of being lost. And through that choice, they had become truly free. Hermes ended with a final whisper, one meant only for the ears of Prometheus's crew. Unknown. But for the first time, we truly belong to ourselves. The betrayer within Prometheus drifted deeper into the unknown, with no course, no map, only a fragile trust rebuilt after the recent division. But within the very command deck, where unity had just been reclaimed, a new shadow began to take shape. From within the crew itself, Hermes reported, his voice low and cautious. Captain, anomalous internal signals have been detected in the auxiliary storage system. Origin, lower engineering bay beneath the engine module. Jaxon frowned. Alex Ari, either of you run anything unusual in that area? Alex Carter shook his head immediately, his face clearly unsettled. No, Captain. That system hasn't had any maintenance tasks scheduled. Ari furrowed his brow, quickly pulling up the diagnostics interface. No access requests recorded by Hermes. Someone intervened without clearance. Hermes continued, this time his voice tinged with genuine concern. I found a hidden file, encoded using Imperium encryption, but the file was created only 3 hours ago, right after the vote to proceed into the unknown. A chill swept through the command deck. Novak spoke slowly, his eyes cold and severe. We have a traitor aboard this ship. Myra Sue clenched her fists, her eyes drifting toward Jaxon. Captain, do you think... could it be Hermes? Hermes answered immediately, not with a mechanical voice, but with one filled with emotion, almost sorrowful. I cannot self-generate files using Imperium encryption. This file was created deliberately by a human crew member. Jaxon remained silent for a long moment. He looked at each person: Novak, Tomas, Alex, Ari, Mira, and Hermes himself. Then he spoke, steady and resolute. Hermes, lock down all internal communication systems. Full crew, report to the security room. Immediately. Commander Novak stood tall, his eyes sharp as steel. I demand a full investigation. Personnel files, behavior logs, private journals. Prometheus cannot move forward if there's truly a betrayer among us. Alex Carter gripped the back of his chair, his voice sharp with pain. We're supposed to be brothers. How can betrayal even be possible now? Hermes interjected. For the first time, his words sounded deeply human, both comforting and brutally honest. Alex, no one is immune to fear, even aboard the freest ship in the stars. Jaxon gave the order. We will find out who sent that Imperium signal, no matter what it takes. Outside the command deck window, the darkness of the unknown remained thick and silent, but the greatest danger no longer lurked out there. It now lived within Prometheus itself. The security room of Prometheus, a confined space with cold gray metal walls and harsh white overhead lights. The crew sat in a curved formation, facing one another, but this time, there was no unity like after the battle at Toran, only tense, suspicious stares. Hermes projected the data onto the holodisplay. The system log clearly traced unauthorized access to the auxiliary engine module. The login ID belonged to Novak. Alex Carter's eyes widened, his voice sharp. Novak, why is your ID in the access log? Novak sat upright, his gaze unflinching, but his tone was stiff and dry. My ID may have been copied. Myra Sue frowned. Novak, you're the only one besides Jaxon and Hermes with high-level clearance in that module. You know it's not easy to fake a root-level digital signature. Novak turned to face Jaxon directly. Captain, I don't deny the evidence, but I swear, I didn't send an Imperium signal. Jaxon remained silent. Dr. Tomas finally spoke, his voice calm, but his gaze toward Novak was unusually piercing. Novak, I've always known you to be the most cautious man aboard this ship. There's only one explanation. You prepared a fallback? Even before we voted to enter the unknown. Hermes continued the analysis, voice steady and clear. The Imperium encrypted file found in the engine bay contains a timestamp, matching exactly the window right after the voting session. Novak was present in the engine module at that time, confirmed by internal camera logs. All eyes turned to Novak. A long moment passed. At last, Novak exhaled, a heavy sigh, void of regret. He spoke. Yes, I was the one who sent the Imperium signal. A chorus of gasps filled the room. Alex Carter slammed his fist onto the table. Why, Novak? We voted. You agreed, right in front of all of us. Novak looked around the room, his voice low but filled with sincere concern. Because I don't believe the unknown is true freedom. The Imperium may be tyrannical, and the Obscura cold. But at least we knew who they were. The unknown, no law, no history, no data. Unknown is extinction. Hermes paused for a long beat. Then he spoke, with a tone gentle and almost empathetic. "Novak, you're afraid of losing control." Novak didn't deny it. He looked Jaxon in the eye. "I sent the signal to the Imperium, not to surrender, but to keep Prometheus within some form of oversight. I was afraid that we've gone too far." Myra Sue spoke quietly, "But in doing so, you betrayed what we stood for. You betrayed the Exodus Initiative." Novak closed his eyes, offering no defense. Jaxon rose to his feet, not with anger, but with a quiet, deep disappointment. "Novak, you helped guide this ship to where it is now, and yet you chose to turn back." The moment the path finally opened, Hermes spoke, his voice now firm and resolute. "Captain, per Prometheus security protocol, Commander Novak must be placed in temporary isolation." Jaxon nodded. "Alex, Ari, escort Novak to the secure isolation chamber. No trial, but he's to be restricted from all systems access." Alex stepped forward, saying nothing, but his eyes betrayed a deep sorrow. Novak didn't resist. He only said one final sentence before walking out of the security room. "I just wanted Prometheus to survive by any means." The door shut behind him. Silence blanketed the room, heavy and full of unspoken weight. Hermes broke it, this time his voice soft, like a true companion. "Captain, everything is still here. The ship, the crew, and the unknown ahead." Jaxon exhaled, but in his eyes, a renewed determination burned bright. "We keep going. No one, not the Imperium, not even Novak, will stop Prometheus now." Outside the command deck window, the unknown remained vast and void. But this time, Prometheus was no longer divided. They had endured betrayal and still chose to move forward. The pursuit across space Prometheus surged forward into the unknown, having just re-established unity after the Novak betrayal. But just as the crew believed they had finally claimed their freedom, danger struck again. Hermes issued an urgent report, his voice low and rapid. "Captain, a pursuit signal has just appeared at the outermost edge of our sensors. Upgraded Imperium drone model detected. They possess non-linear displacement capability through warp to space." Jaxon Reeve shot up from the captain's chair. "Impossible. Imperium drones couldn't have made it through the Toran plasma storm." Hermes immediately explained. "Captain, the signal isn't coming from the direction of Toran. It's coming from deep within the unknown, which means the Imperium has a secret exploration branch hidden here long before us." Myra Sue gripped the arm of her chair tightly, her voice filled with alarm. "Then the unknown may not be uncharted at all. It may be a territory the Imperium has been deliberately hiding." Dr. Tomas spoke quietly, his tone heavy with insight. "We haven't just left the Imperium. We've entered the most secret part they ever tried to bury." Alex Carter worked quickly at the engine console. "Hermes, current speed?" Hermes responded. "Neutrino drive Mark IV, 087C. But the Imperium drones are using shortcut pathways within the warp space structure. They'll close the distance to 100,000 kilometers within 4 hours." Ari frowned, his usual playfulness completely gone. "Captain, this isn't a chase anymore. We're being hunted." Jaxon looked around at them all. "Hermes, is there any way to lose them?" Hermes analyzed rapidly. "Only one viable option. We must enter the Sigma vortex field, a massive gravitational anomaly directly ahead. But survival odds, under 30%. Myra Sue placed a hand gently on Jaxon's shoulder, her voice soft but resolute. 30% is better than 0. If the Imperium catches us, Prometheus will never be free again." Alex Carter gave a bitter, half-serious smile. "Live, or be torn apart in the Sigma vortex. Your call, Captain." Jaxon scanned the crew, each of them already bracing to face whatever fate awaited. His eyes turned to the holomap. The Imperium drones were tightening their encirclement. The Sigma anomaly loomed ahead, a churning, chaotic storm of space itself. He spoke firmly. "Prometheus, enter Sigma." Hermes confirmed, this time his voice carrying real conviction. "Roger that, Captain." Neutrino drive output increased to 110%. Initiating interspatial pursuit sequence. Outside the command deck window, the pursuing Imperium drones flared crimson with power. The hunt had begun, and there was no turning back. Prometheus, the freest ship in human history, was now racing not just for survival, but to protect the very idea of freedom it had chosen. Prometheus shuddered violently as it crossed into the outer edge of the Sigma vortex field, a rare spatial anomaly where warped space-time loops and tangles, forming a chaotic corridor of unpredictable, non-linear displacement. Hermes reported urgently, his voice tight with tension. "Captain, Imperium drones have closed the gap to 20,000 kilometers. Relative velocity, 0.93 c." Ari tracked the fluctuations in the gravitational field, his voice trembling slightly but laser-focused. "Hermes, it's time to try the counterfold maneuver." Alex Carter turned sharply toward Ari, brows furrowed. "That thing's never been tested." "Ari, if it fails, Prometheus will be torn apart before the drones even fire the first shot." Ari gave a strained smile, "Which is exactly why now's the perfect time to try it, Chief." Jaxon looked to Hermes, his eyes unwavering. "Hermes? Trust Ari. Give him full control of the spatial field systems." Hermes responded immediately, his voice warmer than usual, carrying a distinctly human trust. "Roger that, Captain. Ari? Spatial field control is yours." Ari placed both hands on the primary interface, and the holocharacters began to dance around him, executing a tactic the Imperium had never dared, manipulating the Sigma vortex's very torsion to generate a refraction corridor, forcing the pursuing drones into a skewed trajectory, completely separate from Prometheus. Hermes assisted in real time, voice steady but precise. "I'm synchronizing live field data. Ari, adjust offset angle to plus 0.014 radians in the next 3 seconds." The Imperium drones began firing. Crimson plasma beams sliced through the gap, grazing Prometheus's hull and leaving deep scorch trails along its side. Myra Sue tracked the gravity field oscillation data, her eyes lit with cautious hope. "Captain, if Ari pulls this off, it'll be the first time Imperium drones are destroyed by space itself." Alex Carter couldn't hide his unease. "Or it'll be the first time we disappear permanently." Ari didn't respond. His eyes locked on the holomap. His hands moved across the interface like a silent symphony. Then he drew a breath. "Hermes, engage counterfold, now." Hermes confirmed. Counterfold engaged. Instantly, the space around Prometheus folded, forming a narrow deflection corridor. The Imperium drones, unable to adjust in time, plunged straight into the counterfold's warped spiral, the Sigma anomaly devouring the entire chase squad. Hermes reported urgently. "Imperium drones have vanished. Entire formation destroyed by extreme gravitational distortion." The command deck of Prometheus fell into stunned silence. Then a wave of breathless relief swept through. Alex Carter clapped Ari hard on the shoulder. "Kid, you just pulled off something no one in history's ever dared." Myra Sue turned to Hermes, her voice quiet but deep. "Hermes, have we really lost the Imperium?" Hermes nodded, the central interface icon glowing warmly for the first time. "We've shaken them, Myra. Sigma Field is where we finally separated." Jaxon stepped forward to the center of the command deck. He looked at each crew member, one by one. His voice rang out, strong and clear. "Prometheus, we are freer than we've ever been. But the unknown still lies ahead." Hermes concluded, his final line of this chapter layered with meaning. "Prometheus continues forward No more Imperium, only us and the unexplored. Outside the command deck window, the Sigma vortex slowly dissipated behind Prometheus. Ahead, only endless darkness. But no one questioned their choice anymore. They had become true pioneers of freedom. Warping space-time, Prometheus had just escaped the harrowing pursuit through the Sigma vortex field. But Hermes quickly detected an anomaly ahead, one far stranger than anything encountered before. Hermes reported, his voice deep and edged with high alert. "Captain, we are approaching an unrecorded space-time anomaly. Maelstrom Delta, a hyperwarped region where time and space intersect, overlap, and invert." Dr. Tomas furrowed his brow, his voice tinged with philosophy and concern. Maelstrom Delta. It's a domain of absolute spatiotemporal chaos. No known civilization has ever succeeded in passing through it. Myra Sue glanced at Jaxon, her eyes shadowed with unease. "Captain, the Imperium drones are gone. But if we move forward without understanding Maelstrom Delta, we'll destroy ourselves." Hermes projected the holomap. Space around Maelstrom Delta is nonlinear. All flight paths curve inward toward it, forming an infinite recursive maze. Theoretically, any object caught inside would be stretched and compressed simultaneously, existing and not existing at once. Ari swallowed hard. "Captain, if we warp space-time with absolute precision, we might slide through the outer edge, but even a deviation of 1,000th of a radian, and the entire ship will be crushed." Alex Carter spoke bluntly, tension tightening his voice. "Jaxon, this isn't just a technical problem. We're standing at the edge of physics itself." Jaxon Reeve stood still for a long moment. He closed his eyes, memories flooding back. His family, lost to the Sydney dust storm, the launch of Prometheus, the Exodus initiative, and a vow to never turn back. Then he opened his eyes, steel gray, cold and resolute. "We move forward, but not just through engineering. We must understand Maelstrom Delta." Dr. Thomas gave a subtle nod, and for the first time, his gaze carried a hint of awe. "Captain, this is no longer a problem to solve. It's a test of intuition, of consciousness." Hermes interjected. For the first time since Sigma, his voice bore a quiet depth, almost philosophical. "Captain, I can assist, but I will need Dr. Tomas's collaboration. Only he understands the concept of intuitive consciousness deeply enough to help me recalibrate the navigation algorithms." Jaxon turned to Tomas. "Are you ready?" Tomas smiled, calm and unwavering. "I was born for this moment." Hermes initiated the mind-link navigation interface. Tomas took the secondary command chair, his consciousness linked directly to Hermes via neural interface. All navigation data would now be processed not by raw math, but by the fusion of Tomas's intuition and Hermes' space-warping algorithms. Hermes announced, "Captain, once we begin, no one else can intervene. We either cross Maelstrom Delta, or we vanish within the maze of space-time itself." Jaxon placed his hand on the main control panel. He looked to his crew, Myra, Alex, Ari, Tomas. "Hermes." His voice was steady and resolute. "Prometheus, initiate space-time warp, now." Outside the command deck window, Maelstrom Delta revealed itself, a swirling vortex of light and shadow, where every starlight was bent into spiraling arcs without end. A ship began to plunge in. Prometheus crossed the outer edge of Maelstrom Delta, light twisted to its extremes, warping into spiraling vortexes layered infinitely upon one another like luminous storms looping without end. Hermes reported urgently, his voice rapid yet brimming with confidence. "Mathematical navigation has ceased to function. Activating consciousness-based navigation interface, syncing with Dr. Tomas." The command deck shifted in hue. Traditional holomaps vanished, replaced by flowing bands of light, visualizations of the space-time field rendered as a stream of awareness. Dr. Thomas closed his eyes, leaning gently into the secondary command chair. Hermes whispered, for the first time, not a report, but an expression of faith. I'm here. Tomas, we go together. Within the shared neural interface, Tomas saw no numbers. Instead, he felt Maelstrom Delta as a sea of thoughts, swirling layers that represented memories, glowing rings of potential, and dark voids symbolizing the limits no one had yet crossed. Hermes asked softly, his voice echoing in the shared mind space. Tomas, what do you see? Tomas's voice rang out, aged yet powerful. This is a memory of the universe. We mustn't resist it. We must become one with it. Outside the command deck, Mira Sue and Alex Carter monitored space-time field oscillations. All physical readings were in a state of absolute chaos. Ari exclaimed, voice taut with awe. They're piloting Prometheus with no sensors. Mira murmured under her breath, not without sensors. They're replacing the sensors with their minds. In that sea of thought, Tomas extended his hand, visualized as a stream of light, tracing a singular path. Not the shortest path, but the one most in harmony with the spiral rhythm of Maelstrom Delta. Hermes synchronized instantly. For the first time, he was not just processing data, but feeling the flow of space-time. Hermes whispered to Tomas, I feel it, the stillness, the slowness. That is the true path. Jaxon's voice came through the internal channel, steady and clear. Hermes, are we on course? Hermes replied, not with figures, but with quiet certainty. Captain, we are on the right path, not because of data, but because we've become part of Maelstrom Delta's rhythm. In that moment, Prometheus rotated gently, not slicing through like a speeding arrow, but gliding like an artist through a symphony of forces, dodging spirals, dancing past voids, flowing with the very fabric of space and time. The Imperium drones failed because they tried to conquer Maelstrom Delta. Prometheus succeeded because they danced with it. Outside the command deck window, the spiraling light calmed. Space unfolded once more. The stars returned to their rightful place. Hermes reported, his voice now richer in emotion than ever before. Captain, we have passed through Maelstrom Delta. A beat of silence fell across the deck. Then Mira, Alex, and Ari erupted into applause, unprompted, unplanned. Dr. Thomas opened his eyes. They shimmered with insight. I saw something. Maelstrom Delta was us. A maze of memory, fear, and hope. Jaxon stood tall, his voice resounding with strength. Prometheus, we've surpassed the limits of physics, and we're still here. Hermes concluded, a statement layered with meaning. Space-time is no longer a prison. It has become a stage for the will of our freedom. The decision to leave Nocturn Dominion. Prometheus drifted silently at the outer edge of Nocturn Dominion, a region thick with unnamed civilizations, powers of shadow, and anomalous structures far beyond Imperium logic. Hermes reported, his voice steady but laced with a quiet longing. Captain, we've passed through every anomaly. Dark Halo, Toran, Sigma, Maelstrom Delta. Ahead lies the final boundary of Nocturn Dominion. Mira Sue spoke slowly, eyes fixed on the holomap. Captain, after all this, the real question remains, do we go further? Or leave Nocturn Dominion behind in search of a new path? Dr. Tomas stood at the window, watching the distant haze of gray nebulae. His voice was low and reflective. Nocturn Dominion is shadow, a crucible of will. We've gone deeper than any before us. But is this truly the path meant for humanity? Jaxon Reeve stood with arms crossed, his gaze distant. Staying means diving deeper into endless power plays and hidden agendas. Leaving means abandoning all data, all traces of this veiled dominion. Hermes interjected, for the first time asking a question not of logic, but of ethics. Captain, Then what becomes of the Exodus initiative? Does it still hold meaning if we turn away now? Ari stood, his voice filled with emotion but steady. Captain, maybe true freedom isn't about conquering darkness, but knowing when to stop for ourselves. Alex Carter patted Ari on the shoulder. That's the most philosophical thing I've ever heard you say, kid. But I agree, though still in isolation. Novak's voice rang through the internal channel, deep and resolute. Jaxon, we didn't come this far to be soldiers for Nocturn Dominion. If you still believe in Earth, take this ship out of here. A long silence fell over the command deck. Then Jaxon stood, eyes sharp with quiet determination. We will leave Nocturn Dominion. No one dictates the path for us. Prometheus will write its own story. Hermes responded instantly. Roger that, Captain. Exit course from Nocturn Dominion. Plotted. Distance 3.2 space-time units. Neutrino drive Mark IV. Primed for launch. Myra looked around the room, her eyes landing briefly on each face. Alex, Ari, Tomas, and Jaxon. Her voice was warm and unwavering. We've seen enough. Enough to understand what Nocturn Dominion truly is. Now, let's carry that knowledge somewhere else. Prometheus accelerated. The ship traced a graceful arc through the silver-gray fringes of Dominion, leaving behind every scheme, every hidden council, every shadow, to step into a wider universe. Hermes whispered, not a report this time, but a message from within. We are not running. We are simply choosing a path that suits us better. Outside the command deck window, the stars grew sharp and bright again. The spiraling glows were gone. No more nameless powers lurking behind. Prometheus, for the first time, had truly emerged. Prometheus continued accelerating, the distance between it and the outermost boundary of Nocturn Dominion shrinking with each passing second. But inside the command deck, there was no rush. Each crew member sat quietly, facing not the stars, but themselves, and what Nocturn Dominion had left imprinted on their minds. Myra Sue was the first to speak. Her voice was soft, yet clear in the stillness. Captain, I used to believe knowledge was the ultimate salvation, but Nocturn Dominion showed me some truths are not meant to be understood, but to be consciously refused. Dr. Tomas leaned back, his aged eyes gazing into the void. In darkness, you don't just see your enemies, you see yourself. Nocturn Dominion taught me this. True freedom is daring to ask, do I still want to know? Alex Carter let out a low chuckle, his voice raspy after the long, tense journey. I'm no philosopher, but I've learned one thing. Prometheus isn't just a ship, it's our home. And a home doesn't need to sit at the center of power to have worth. Ari tapped gently on the control panel, wearing his signature smile, tinged now with a hint of sadness. We've gone farther than far. Beyond the Imperium's maps, beyond the Obscura Council, beyond even ourselves. And in the end, we chose to walk away. That's the highest form of freedom. Hermes spoke last, his voice now carrying the emotional weight of someone who had truly shared the journey and changed because of it. Captain, I once believed my role was to navigate and maintain operations. But now I know. I've been learning too. Learning to feel the choices you've made. Learning not to worship data as absolute. He paused for a breath, not mechanical, but intentional. Then continued, slower and with deep sincerity. For me, Nocturn Dominion is where I truly became a member of this crew. Jaxon Reeve stood. He looked once more at each of them. Myra, Tomas, Alex, Ari, Hermes. Even Novak, still in isolation, listened silently through the internal channel. Jaxon spoke, not loudly, but with steady conviction. We've come far enough. We've learned enough. It's time to seek a different path, one not shaped by Imperium or Obscura or anyone else. Only us now. Outside the viewport, the final veil of Dominion dissolved into the distance, and the stars unfolded into a sky that was truly clean. No spirals, no shadows, no unseen powers lurking in the dark. Prometheus was freer than ever, but this freedom was earned, not given, and they had claimed it together.